Are you up for the adventure of a lifetime? Join us as we look into the latest rage in cruising, expedition cruising. And as always, folks, if you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications to get notified each time we post. I'm joined today by Linda and Rich Skinner, owners of Cruise Holidays of Woodinville, based in Kirkland, Washington. Rich and Linda and their team of professional travel advisors have been crafting luxury cruise and land vacations for satisfied guests in and around Washington and across the country since 2001. Hi, folks. Welcome back to RTE Travel Talk.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
Good to see you, Ken.
Great to have you back with us, folks. So, as you guys know, one of the emerging trends that we're starting to see in cruising these days is what's known as expedition cruises or cruising. And I was hoping that you could enlighten our viewers and listeners on just what is an expedition cruise and why is it hot at the moment? Where do they go and who are they for? How does that sound?
That sounds good. I'll tell you, let me take a whack at that first, Ken.
Okay.
Exploration and expedition cruising has been around a long, long time. I guess you could say it started with Christopher Columbus, maybe, and Magellan, and then you went to Sir Francis Drake, and then you went to the more modern ones like Roald Amundsen and Shackelford and Robert Peary. And so there's been a lot of history of exploration, and it's really captured the imagination of the quote unquote common man,
Right.
To be part of that exploration and find new things, find our world, find out what's going on in our world, being able to explore it. And so I think that's been one of the keys that has kind of led to this, what I call explosion of expedition cruising, because it really is an explosion. Although it's minor compared to the major part of cruising because your ships are very small, but it still is something that is now taking hold and is really becoming kind of a major force in the cruise industry.
Well, there's a trend towards smaller ships to begin with, so.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you just a thumbnail, just on some trends. The regular cruising industry really started as an offshoot of passenger cruises that, passengers taking people from Europe to America and other places. And what are you going to do in the off season? Well, they were on vacation cruises, dirt cheap. And that kind of started the cruise industry. And then it moved forward and you started getting some of the new companies like Norwegian Cruise Line and Carnival Cruise Line and the big guys now, Royal Caribbean. And they started out, and then you started going to this, what I call the race to the top. And it was, how big can you build it?
Yeah.
I'm 1,000 tons more than you are. And instead of 1,000 people, I now have 3,000 people.
And now we're up to 6,000 people.
Now we're up to 6,000. It just the old joke about they're going to eventually have a ship that is the front end of the ship is in Miami and the back is in Nassau. So it's as far as how big the ship are. But the market has been segmenting all the time. It's been doing that, and you really kind of had a falling out of what's going on in cruising. So now, like the big ships, primarily are multi-generational. So you got families, they want to have a lot of things to do for everybody in the family. Big ships are perfect for them. But then you have the people maybe who have been on a lot of cruises and they want to have something different. So we had the big ships and we had the large amount of cruising, making cruising a mass market product. And I can remember when I got in the business, 3 million passengers was the goal for CLIA. And now it's way over 10, 20, some huge number like that. And it's just grown as being more of a mainstream vacation offering than it was as kind of a niche thing that a few people would do. And as it becomes mass market, has become segmented. And we noticed in the late 90s that things like river cruising were starting to come into the fore. And we saw that just taking hold enormously. We saw Viking using the power of Downton Abbey to market river cruising, which caught on in a big way. And it really was very successful. So we saw that. We also saw some small ships starting to emerge, small ship companies like Seabourn and Silversea and Azamara, and some of those who were offering smaller size ships to the clientele that did not want all the bells and whistles of the giant ships. So really you saw some evolution in that area. And then recently in the last few years, we've now seen the emergence of what we call the expedition cruise segment. And expedition cruising started out with being people who were willing to rough it and go on maybe a university Arctic research vessel and eat whale blubber and all that. really, really tough stuff for people,
Right.
tough people. But it's evolved from that, and you had some of the players like National Geographic and Abercrombie and Kent, some of the other guys starting to develop product which really went to more exotic locations. And the whole idea was to be able to go someplace that probably none of your neighbors have ever been to. And maybe they all want to go there, but they've never been to. And you kind of have like a badge that you've been to Antarctica, or you've been to Borneo, or you've been to Madagascar,
Right.
or you've been someplace unusual. So it was really kind of the evolution, so to speak, of how we are in the industry. So I think that's where we're going.
Part of that too, Hunt, is that Rich, is that it used to be that cruising when it first started out was about the ship and cruising and being on the ship and doing things on the ship. And there's still a little bit of that, but it has now that gets old after a while, I think.
Yeah.
And so now it becomes the destination. What kind of destination can you go to? You see that Viking has kind of opened that up with, you spend a whole lot more time with on shore than you do on the ship, that kind of thing. So I think there's that changeover too, and that's kind of opened itself up to this expedition idea because, you get an exotic, very different kind of destination.
Right.
With those. So I think that has a lot to do with it too.
So if I hear you correctly, expedition cruising is destination and experience driven.
And
Exactly.
another difference is with the bigger ships and the larger cruise lines, they're really driven by how much you buy on board. Onboard revenue is king is kind of what their mantra is. But for expedition cruising, that's not the case. You're going to pay for your cruise up front, and it's going to be very expensive, and you're going to that's part of the deal that goes along with it. There's no casinos, there's no lavish stage shows, there's no any number of things that you might have on the big ships. But in fact, I think that maybe is a good point where Linda can talk about what the average expedition passenger might look like.
The average passenger. Well, actually, all of the expedition cruise companies kind of give a profile for what their passenger, and they talk about things like they are risk takers. They tend to be people who like to do things a little bit out of the box. They have very high curiosity and they want to visit different kinds of places. They usually have a pretty good net worth because they've done a lot of travel. It's you don't find a lot of first timers going on expedition, so it tends to be a little bit younger and adventurous, because in everyone's mind, it is that type of a thing where you're going to be doing a lot of physical activity and things like that. And so they're looking for something really different and energetic. And so that's the expedition.
So if we were to buttonhole an age range on board one of these ships, are we talking 40 somethings or?
Rich, can you remind me? I'm thinking it was like 45 to 65 type.
Yeah, most of them that's the case. However, because that niche attracts younger people, very successful younger people. It might be the 30-year-old who has a $1.5 million home, has a couple of Teslas, a custom-made carbon bicycle costs them $5,000. I mean, people who have lots of disposable income.
Right. So it can skew a little younger. So you could find you could find quite a range of people, and it's kind of based on their ability
more than age. I think because you do have people in their 80s and even some late people in their 90s who are extremely active. Some of the ships are kind of opening up to where even people who maybe are a little bit mobility challenged can still experience the Antarctic and things like that. Maybe not in the same depth that someone who can really get out and walk on ice can do, but they can still.
But that's wonderful.
I think a lot of the lines are realizing, okay, as the boomer generation is moving up into this, where they're still wanting to get that adventure, but they maybe can't physically handle it. I see them kind of doing things that could help with that.
Oh,
But for
fantastic.
some of the more extreme expeditions, some of the cruise lines even require you have medical clearance.
Yeah. Well, and medical clearance to do some of the things like the polar plunge. They're not going to throw you in freezing ice water if your heart can't take it.
Be your last cruise.
So, in terms of destinations, where do they mostly go?
Well, you see a lot of Arctic, Antarctic. In fact, Antarctic, it's only the expedition ships who can go to Antarctica.
Right.
The big ships can go down in that area, but you cannot get off them and go to any place.
And you can't really go into some of the bays and things like that are,
There are international treaties that govern the size of the number of people you can bring into these locations, because they're fragile ecological destinations.
Right.
And in Antarctica, you can only have 100 people at a time ashore. You can't have any more than that. And so it's kind of restricts exactly the number of people who can do it. Unlike
Galapagos, if you look at a warm weather exotic,
again, they restrict as well. So Galapagos is another one. A lot of the cruise line expedition now will tie in Machu Picchu to have a side trip to go there as well, to Galapagos. So you're seeing a lot of that stuff. One of the itineraries we'll talk about a little bit later is Northwest Passage, where you leave from Reykjavik and you end up in Nome across the top.
Wow.
So it's kind of unusual.
So it's exotic, very different kind of itineraries on these in most cases. And that's kind of how it started out. Probably the prime, when people think of this, they think of Antarctica or the Arctic Circle, going into even in the fjords and places like that. You think of ice.
Yeah.
Any place there's a lot of ice, and that is because they all have reinforced hulls for going into
They're all what they call P6, which means they can go over new ice, the ice from the season, and they can go when it's in the summer, whatever the summer season is for that destination. There's only one ship that I know of that has a P2. A designation, making them really an icebreaker, and they can go on most places that icebreakers can go. So it's kind of super hardened hull and specially designed.
But some of them do Africa, different places in Africa. So there's quite a few different itineraries that they do. But exotic is the only thing I can think of is repeating that. They tend to be more exotic places.
So the world is basically your oyster.
Yes.
Wow. What cruise lines come to mind when that offer expedition cruising, folks?
Well, there's a lot of them. You have some of the real kind of one-off ones like Hurtigruten and Quark and A&K and National Geographic. They kind of like, and Swan, they have like one ship basically, and it's kind of their deal, that they really have kind of their niche audience that they go after, that are some of the people who they like. But some of the bigger ones that are really gaining a foothold and doing exceptionally well are Viking, and let's talk about that in a bit. Silversea, which went into the expedition mode several years ago and really is pushing hard for that. And then a company that we kind of enjoy called Ponant, which is a French company and has been in sailing yachts primarily, and kind of exotic small ships. And they have a new ship which is spectacular. So those are some of the ones that, now like I say, you can go on Celebrity or Holland or Princess or anybody and go down to the Antarctic region, or even in some of them will go up through the polar areas, but not into the ice areas.
Right.
And you can do those kinds of.
So basically, with the contemporary lines, if you go that road, it's basically a drive-by.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
really is.
As opposed to
actually view it and go, oh, there it was.
As opposed to getting out on the ice and shaking hands with a penguin.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I had a friend once tell me, and talking about Alaska cruising. He says, if you're just doing Alaska cruising, you don't do the inland and go up to Denali and Fairbanks and do that stuff. It's like going to Disneyland and not getting out of the parking lot.
Yeah.
So
For
it's
sure.
kind of like that.
One of the questions that we've seen come across the wire about expedition cruising, are they all inclusive?
Somewhat.
Well, let me put it this way. If you take a Silversea and use them as an example, they will pick you up at your house in a transfer and take you to the airport. They will put you on the airplane economy. You can have a reduced price business if you want it. They'll put you in a hotel when you get to the transfer point. They'll put you up overnight in the hotel. The next day, they'll transfer you out of the airport, fly you to whatever destination, exotic destination that the cruise leaves from, put you up in a hotel if necessary, put you on the ship. You do the cruise, come back, they put you in the hotel again, fly you back, fly all of us back, put you in a car and take you home. So it's door-to-door services all included in the price. That's pretty much all inclusive.
Yeah, that doesn't get much better than that.
You don't have to miss
Not every expedition
Is like that.
does that, so that's why I say it kind of depends on the line that you're talking about, but it's mostly all inclusive there, but some lines have extras that you can purchase.
There's not a lot of, the shore excursions are included, and big difference here. You don't have choice in shore excursions on the expedition. You go where you can go. And when you have a program where it says you're going to be in X place the next day, you might be in Y place the next day because the weather not going to let you get into X. You just got to go with it. That's the way it works. Safety.
Yeah, that's what all of them talk about, flexibility. The passengers have to be flexible because they are so dependent, especially going into Antarctica. That is, they say, here's your itinerary, but it also has every disclaimer, weather permitting, all of the things that they talk about. You don't know if you may be planning to go. That's why everybody, two of the things that you have on an expedition cruise that are really important is you have the briefing ahead of time, and then you have at the end of the day, you have your coming together and sharing what we experienced and all that kind of thing. It's a real group type of an adventure, and of course, because you're going on an adventure, when you're with a group of people and you're on an adventure, it kind of bonds you together. So it really bonds, and friendships develop from this, and because you're doing something exciting together and you really are dependent on one another for your safety and all of those kinds of things. So it is kind of exciting in that way, you have that ability, but that is an important part of it.
Yeah, so really it's a 100% total different experience as opposed to a regular ocean cruise line.
Yes. Yeah.
They describe it as an immersive experience.
Right.
You're going to be fully immersed into places that that defy the penguins and the seals and the orcas and everything else, the birds, everything you're going to see there that probably aren't any other place in the world.
Right.
And it's something that you're going to remember for your entire life. I'm sure there's people that'll do it more than once, but it's a once in a lifetime thing.
It is. It is.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. Viking talks, the ads talk about, be curious. Have you seen that ad? Be curious. That they do. And that curiosity is another key part, is those people really want to learn about. So just about all the ships have great scientists on board to help you understand the culture and the environment that you're going to be in. And they do, they have huge teams of people who are there to guide you on this experience and help you to understand what is, what's going on, what each animal is, and what part they play in the environment. And, most of them have some kind of a scientific lab where you can they do research for scientific companies out there, and it's happening on these some of these ships that are going out, because they're dual purposing, having the experience, plus they're doing scientific research. And they're all the ships are very mindful of being very green and making sure that they're not damaging the environment as they're doing this. So it's a very interesting product.
Wow.
An example, Ken, is when you wear your boots, your Wellingtons to go ashore, you have to go through a boot washing machine, both going and coming back, because they don't want to get any stuff that's on your boots to contaminate either the environment.
Yeah, they do. They have every ship has a thing that you walk through that's sanitizing your boots before you're able to get off onto the land.
How long are these as a rule?
Generally, they tend to stay from 10 days and up, because it's not a 7-day product by and large.
Right.
For example, in Antarctica, you've got 2 days in the Drake Passage, both going and coming, or they call it the Drake Lake or the Drake Mistake.
Yeah.
And you don't know where the weather's going to be like down there, but it takes a couple of days back and forth. So right there, you're limited in what you can do. And then the destinations itself, depending upon weather conditions, about where you're going to go.
Right.
So, but they generally tend to stay a minimum of 10 days and can be, what's the one that the Viking has got? Its longitudinal world cruise.
Yeah, I think it was 70 days. Yeah.
But
you can take pieces of that. It basically goes from cruising down through along the east coast of Canada and U.S. across the Panama Canal, down the west coast of South America, stopping at Galapagos and Machu Picchu, and then down to around the Cape and into Ushuaia to go out to Antarctica.
Tell me about some of the ships and perhaps the newer ships that are starting to come online that people are excited about.
Yeah, let me just talk about first the one that's kind of been in the news lately, because people who have been watching know that the Crystal Cruises went bankrupt. Their owners, guess the casinos dried up in Malaysia or something, and they lost the cruise line. But it was kind of like the good deal for Silversea, because they were able to take what was known as the Crystal Endeavour and buy it and call it now the Silver Endeavour. And they added a U in at the end of it to make it the same British spelling, and also being the same as Captain Cook's famous ship, the Endeavour. So they're pretty smart. But the real genius of the whole deal was it cost Crystal $400 million to build that ship.
Right.
Silverseas was able to buy it for $275, and it's 1 year old. Talk about a depreciation coming off the floor. We're like, whoa! But
great deal for Silversea. It's too bad about Crystal, though.
But it's a gorgeous ship. They spent $1.9 million per stateroom on this ship.
Wow.
But it's an absolutely fabulous, gorgeous ship that you'd really, really enjoy. So it's got all this, the things you'd expect from pool in the back, that at night the pool disappears and it becomes a dance floor as it rises up out of the ground. And it's got the palm court, and it's got all kinds of stuff that you'd expect on a very expensive Crystal cruise.
Wow. So, a lot of great amenities.
Oh, yeah. Everything you can possibly think of.
Yeah.
Linda, why don't you talk a little bit about our favorite Viking expedition?
Yeah, Viking is so interesting because they, one of the things that's kind of nice about Viking is that if you've been on one of their ships, you always feel comfortable on any of their ships, because they kind of cookie cutter everything so that it's the same experience and the same quality of service and everything. So they've introduced last year their 2 expedition cruise ships, and this is really the first year that they've been able to actually be using them. And Octantis is the one that I recently have been looking at, and it has the Viking cultural feel, and that is that it has the very kind of, I call it casual elegance. It has that beautiful, all the staterooms are gorgeous. They, every part of the ship, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and how they develop it.
Right.
And so if you're a longtime Viking customer, you can feel really comfortable. And if you're new to Viking, I think you'll get a really good idea of that. And that's why they have a lot of repeat customers. They've taken that whole, like I said, curiosity and cultural experience and, learning about, and they've applied it to how they do this product. So they have the science labs at Interactive. They have, they have submarines on board that can go down into, I think there's 6 passenger submarines that you can go down into the ocean and get a view. Also, they have the boat that launches from the ship for viewing things, right? They have the typical Zodiac where
Right.
you have to load in, to the Zodiac, but they also have this boat where literally someone in a wheelchair could be wheeled up to it, loaded onto it, strapped into the seat. It rolls off the back of the boat.
Wow.
And then goes out and takes people sightseeing in whatever area they want to be in.
Wow.
And then it comes back and it rolls back up into the boat.
In the hangar. They have a hangar.
And it's literally called the hangar. That's where they keep their Zodiacs. They keep their kayaks because kayaking is big in this type of thing, expedition cruising. And then you have all of the things that are normal to Viking. You have the specialty restaurant as well as the regular dining room. They don't have 2 specialty restaurants, but they have the one specialty restaurant plus a lot of other like beautiful little seating areas. They have a section on the ocean liner that they call the living room, which is on the lower deck. Well, the living room here is on, I think it was the 5th deck is where the living room is
Right.
on. And just that was one of my favorite things on Viking was sitting in the living room and reading my book and drinking my coffee. It feels like you're in a living room. It's very comfortable. So they have that. But on Expedition, they have the science lab. They have the room where this is I never know how to pronounce it. Aula.
Yeah.
This is a theater that has a 270-degree view, windows, just beautiful. Just showing this is amazing. And you sit there, and if they want to do a show, they drop down a screen over one of the windows, and it's a big, huge screen, and they can show they can do a movie, they can show videos of where you're going to be next day if everything goes well, and just a gorgeous, gorgeous theater where they do their lectures, where they do everything. What I think about this ship as I look at it is that it kind of brings the whole idea of expedition cruising to a broader audience.
Right.
It gives them all the elegance that you might need, but it's also practical, and so it is really, I think, a very cool product because it's a little bit of a hybrid between what an ocean cruise would be and an expedition cruise.
One of the problems with the bigger ships is when they land, the locals sometimes are not excited about 5,000 people descending upon their little hamlet. And with these Viking ships now, they go up into the Great Lakes in the summertime, and they can go to those little ports because there's only 300 people, and they're welcomed, and they're glad to have them there as summer tourism. So it's kind of like they were smart. They plugged into the
and it gives them the ability to do things like the Great Lakes and things like that. So it opens up some products that they wouldn't be able to do, and I think we're going to see more of that. It opens up a lot with these smaller ships.
Well, just sitting here listening to you folks, we've all been on tons of cruises, and there's only so many times you can go to the casino, or so many times you can ride the wave rider, or all these things. The idea that you can get involved in a science lab or listen to these lectures, that's going to appeal to a lot of people.
Yes.
I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think this is a wave in travel that is really going to catch on.
Yeah.
Because it is exciting and people want to learn about their
Yeah.
world. And that's what I love about travel is that, experiencing these things helps people to be more understanding
Yes.
and more tolerant and more, and they begin to see how magnificent this planet is. I see that with these expedition companies. They are definitely working to be mindful that they save this so that for generations people can enjoy the beauty of the earth.
Right.
And probably the most ecologically sound expedition ship is a brand new one called Le Commandant Charcot, which is named after a 19th century French explorer who I'd never heard of before, but it's owned by Ponant. This is a game changer as far as ecological soundness is concerned. It uses liquid natural gas propulsion, but it's also a hybrid and it uses batteries, and it takes the waste generated on board, makes it into fuel, which they can use in their engines. So there's no waste. They have a desalinization plant built into the ship. They have telescopes on the outside deck. So if you're someplace you want to see 4 or 5 miles away, you can look through these wonderful.
Or if you want to watch
amazing
stars,
Yeah.
they are.
And then in case you're a foodie, Alain Ducasse, who's a 21 Michelin star guy, did all of their food, and their official champagne is Vive Clicquot. And so, I mean, they do it with very French style, but no paper on board. Whoops, no paper on board. Minor technical issue there. No paper on board, and everything is recycled. So. It's my cat jumped up.
Did we get cat bombed?
Yeah, you did.
Cat bombed.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Anyway, that's just an amazing ship, and it's an icebreaker, a P2 icebreaker, so it can I guess they could use it for whatever. It has a helicopter on board, but they don't take people on it. They use it for scouting the ice ahead,
Right.
and taking emergency food to villages and stuff like that. So I mean, it's an amazing piece of technology. It'd be fun to see how it works out.
Beautiful too. It's a gorgeous ship.
Yeah. And an icebreaker.
And an icebreaker. The only really true icebreaker.
It would be quite an experience for people.
Yeah.
Aboard that.
And not
that
only, they also have a bridge in the stern of the ship as well as in the forward part. So when you're in the ice, you can back the ship out.
Oh, yeah.
Because they'll literally ram into the ice.
Yeah.
So that passengers can get off and walk on the ice that's over the ocean.
Price-wise, Ken, it's not inexpensive. Just to reinforce that, $1,000 a day is probably a starting point per person. So it gives you some idea just of what it is. But as you talked about earlier, inclusive, it's mostly all inclusive.
Price-wise, it's not for everybody, but really $1,000 a day is not really out of the way.
No. If you went to the George Sand Hotel in Paris, you'd probably pay $3,000 a night.
No, exactly. Well, folks, it sounds absolutely amazing. Just absolutely amazing. I would be definitely up for that type of a expedition cruise. If folks wanted to book an expedition cruise, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, not to just toot our own horn, but to really be practical for people. It's such an intricate product. There's so many questions that need to be asked and things like that to kind of fit it to what is the right product for that person.
Right.
So I really think that it is important to work with people that know the products and can help customize it to what your pocketbook is, what your needs are, that. And so working with a good travel advisor, I think that's important in travel these days, no matter what.
Yeah, I would agree.
Especially you're not going to, you're going to spend some pretty good money for this. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck, so to speak. You have somebody that has your back. They're not just selling their product. They're looking for what fits you. And so finding someone who can help you with that, we're happy to do that for you. We know this business well, but whatever, just look for that, because you need to have the person in your corner helping you through this process.
And keep in mind, these are only 200 passenger ships in most cases. They only go to certain places very few numbers of times of the year. So you need to really look at a long time frame to make sure you get what you want, because it's not like we go every week. They don't go every week. There's seasonality to them, and there's a lot of other factors. So you really want to be in touch with a counselor who can advise you on exactly how to get it all done, even to the point of, what do I have to buy for clothing to go to Antarctica? Because there's guides on exactly what you have to do.
For sure.
Yeah.
So if I hear you right, you really need a travel advisor as your advocate in order, because number one, you're going to be making a major investment.
Yes.
Right.
And I would expect that, at 100 or 200 passengers, the ships are always sailing at full capacity.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you're not going to book that for 2 months from now.
No.
No. You need, this isn't a last minute sale type of thing. You need to think about this a long time in advance. And it's not too late to think about 2023 later in the year, but you're really better off looking at 2024.
And keep in mind, the winter in the southern hemisphere is the opposite of the northern. So December, January, February is summertime down there.
Yeah. That's your time to do Antarctica.
Right on. Right on. Well, folks, this has been absolutely great information. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that in the future. If folks wanted to reach out to you for the benefit of our podcast listeners, what's the best way to reach you folks?
Best way to reach us is through our website. Call us direct. We actually pick up our phone and answer phone calls. And 425-487-4001 or info@luxuriant.com.
Oh, perfect. All right, folks. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that. And where are you guys off to next? Where's your next adventure?
We're off to Alaska.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're going to celebrate Linda's birthday on the Majestic Princess, sailing from Whittier to Vancouver.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it.
We'll have to have you back to regale us with all your adventures on Princess Cruises, the Love Boat.
Yes. And it's coming back again as another TV program.
I did not know that.
Yes, it is.
Yes. They're reviving all of those old programs.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, until that time, I'm just going to wish you safe and happy cruising. May the wind always be at your back. And I hope to see the both of you on a Lido deck real soon.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Bye.
And that about wraps things up for today, folks. A very special thanks to my guests, Rich and Linda Skinner of Cruise Holidays of Woodinville. If you'd like to reach out to Rich and Linda about a cruise vacation or an expedition cruise, I'll leave their contact information in the description. If you'd like to reach us, simply send a question to questions@realtravelexperts.com, visit our website, realtravelexperts.com, or leave a comment. We always respond. And as always, folks, if you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It helps us to spread the word and is certainly appreciated. So until next time, happy travels.